So, how does a small island nation end up ruling a quarter of the entire world? And maybe more importantly, what happens after that? Well, we're about to go on a 300-year journey to find out. We're going to see how the United Kingdom was forged in war, how it rose to unbelievable global dominance, and then how it had to completely redefine itself for the modern world. The historian G.M. Trevelyan really hit the nail on the head with this one. For centuries, the story of the UK is, at its heart, a story of supremacy. After finally defeating its biggest rival, France, Britain's control of the seas and global markets set the stage for, well, everything that came next. This is the core of our whole explainer today. All right, so how did this all kick off? Let's dive into our first section, Forging a Global Power. We're going to look at how this new nation was literally created, pieced together through political deals and military victories, and how it almost immediately began its incredible, and often ruthless, climb to the top of the world stage. What's pretty amazing when you look at it like this is just how fast the key pieces fell into place. First up, in 1707, you have the Acts of Union, which officially merged England and Scotland. A little over a century later, in 1801, Ireland gets added to the mix. And then, bam, just 14 years after that, Napoleon is finally defeated at Waterloo, taking Britain's last major European rival right off the board. The foundation was set. But here's the thing, it wasn't just a straight shot to the top. The loss of the American colonies in 1783 was a huge, huge blow. That was the end of what we call the First British Empire, which was all about mercantilism, basically using colonies to make the mother country rich. But Britain didn't just give up, no way. Instead, it pivoted. It shifted its entire focus away from the Americas and toward Asia, Africa, and the Pacific to build a second British Empire, one that would end up being even bigger and more powerful. Let's talk about the price tag for a second. This number right here, £679 million. That was Britain's national debt right after the Napoleonic Wars. To put that in perspective, that was more than double its entire GDP at the time. It's a staggering figure that shows you something really important. Building and defending an empire was an insanely expensive business. It was all financed by this powerful engine of taxes, loans, and, of course, industrial power. And that incredible debt? It turned out to be a catalyst, not a roadblock. So for our second section, we're looking at the empire at its zenith. We're jumping into the 19th century, the Victorian era, to see how that industrial might turned debt into investment and fueled the absolute peak of British economic and political power. This is the empire we all think of, right? The one where the sun never sets? Historians have a name for the mid-Victorian era, Britain's golden years. And for good reason. For about 20 years, the country had relative peace and just unbelievable prosperity. The national income per person shot up by half. It was a time of massive confidence and a belief in endless progress. So, what was the secret sauce? Well, Britain became known as the workshop of the world. It completely dominated global manufacturing, especially things like textiles and machinery. London was the undisputed financial capital of the planet. But the real takeaway here is what all that economic muscle let them do. It let Britain set the rules for global trade, fund massive projects like railways in India, and project its power anywhere on Earth with the massive Royal Navy. But as we all know, no empire lasts forever. Which brings us to Section 3, the wars that changed everything. The 20th century unleashed two absolutely devastating world wars. And for Britain, these conflicts were a paradox. They marked the empire's final bloody triumph, but they were also the very thing that broke its back. Now, Britain and its allies, they did win the First World War, but that victory came at a cost that was just crippling. It nearly bankrupted the nation and scarred an entire generation. The country burned through its financial reserves and had to borrow huge sums of money from the United States. The age of Britain's easy dominance was officially over. And this is the human cost. 3 million casualties. This was the famous lost generation. An entire generation of young men just gone. And that left a deep psychological wound on the country that never fully healed. That boundless optimism of the Victorian era, it was shattered. Winning World War II came with a very cold, very harsh realization. Britain was exhausted. It was financially broken. And it was no longer a superpower in the same league as the United States or the Soviet Union. If there was any doubt, the Suez Crisis in 1956 made it painfully clear. Britain was forced into a humiliating retreat by American pressure, and the whole world saw that the balance of power had changed for good. So, what do you do when the age of empire is over? You have to reinvent yourself. That brings us to our fourth section, from empire to commonwealth. This chapter is all about a massive two-part transformation, carefully dismantling a global empire on the world stage while trying to build a brand new kind of society back home. For the people back in Britain, the reward for all the wartime sacrifice was the welfare state. It started with a blueprint, the Beveridge Report in 1942, and then the landslide labor victory in 1945 put the whole plan into motion. And the crown jewel of it all, of course, was the creation of the National Health Service, the NHS, offering free health care to everyone. It was a brand new social contract for a new era. While all this was happening at home, the empire was being rapidly taken apart. It really kicked off with independence for India and Pakistan in 1947, and then decolonization just swept across the globe. But what's interesting, as you can see here, is that while most colonies became fully independent, the vast majority chose to keep a connection by joining the new Commonwealth of Nations. It was a way to turn that old imperial relationship into a new voluntary partnership. Okay, that brings us into the modern era. Section 5, a kingdom redefined. With the empire gone, Britain has basically spent the last half-century or so grappling with some really complex questions about its place in the world and about its own identity. And really, it all boils down to this one question. What is Britain's role now? Is it a key European power? Is it a mid-sized island with a special relationship with America? Or is it something else entirely? Finding an answer has been, to put it mildly, complicated and very divisive. This timeline really shows that constant push and pull. Joining Europe back in '73 was a huge step to find a new purpose, a decision that was then dramatically reversed with the Brexit vote in 2016. At the same time internally, devolution in 1997 gave more power to Scotland and Wales, which in turn raised new questions about the unity of the kingdom itself. And the recent change in government is just the latest chapter in this ongoing search for direction. And that question right there, it just perfectly captures the ultimate challenge, doesn't it? The UK started as a union designed to project power all over the globe. Now, it's a union searching for a new reason to exist. After this epic 300-year journey from empire back to island, the question of what exactly united means in the United Kingdom is more urgent and more fascinating than ever.